Why don't we talk just real quick, as much as you're comfortable with sharing, obviously you talked about it a bit in the New York Times piece, but what was it in particular that made you want to, obtain a gun and a permit to carry? Obviously you had a personal issue with, former boyfriend, former significant other who was, that relationship ended poorly. And can you just give us a little more background on what happened there?
Sure. So I, like many people, ended a relationship over a year ago. And for several months of the past year, with increasing escalation, my former boyfriend started reaching out to family and friends, trying to get in touch with me, sending very lengthy missives to family and friends. And at first it was kind of more annoying than alarming. And in about April of this year, it got to a level, as I write in my piece, he had gone through my social media and printed out photos of me with friends and had, reached out to my family with what we felt was very alarming messages. And I think we all kind of have a gut sense when things are starting to get dangerous. And this person knows where I live. And this person also was getting served a temporary restraining order. Thankfully, I was out of the country when that happened, but I genuinely did not know how they would react. And I knew that they had a history of erratic behavior. And there's always a balance, of course, between caution and paranoia. But I'm a single woman. I live alone, and I was very concerned about what would happen. I think it ended up making it in the final version of the piece, but I had 2 NYPD officers from their domestic violence unit come to check up on me. I live in a walk-up apartment, like many single New Yorkers, and one of the officers was out of breath by the time they climbed up to my apartment, which, is fine. But I was just thinking, oh my God, if there's an actual emergency here, I'm going to be on my own at least for, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, however long. The response time in New York City, it seems like from 911 calls is at least 3-4 minutes, plus getting up the stairs. So it really hit me in that moment that, I need to have a plan for how I would get out of a bad situation.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, so you had a very serious, specific threat, not necessarily a direct threat to your life in terms of articulated and written down or spoken to you, but obviously a dangerous situation that's developed to the point where you're even able to obtain a restraining order. But so why did you attempt to get a permit? Did you actually file an application with the NYPD, or what was the step there as far as the gun permitting goes?
So I had started the application. The other thing that your listeners should know is that in New York City, the application for a handgun license costs over $300. And, that's a big chunk of change. So I started the application, reached out to the friend who I knew had gone through a similar process in New Jersey. And when she told me that this would basically be throwing money into a process that was very unlikely to be approved, I put it to the wayside and started, dealing with other things. It's absolutely in my plan for this year. But, like others, I want to understand exactly the way to go about it. Now that the Bruen decision has come down, hopefully it'll be a little more clear and easy, but it's still going to be, I want to make clear, it's still going to be like a big process in New York. Yeah.
So is that $300 fee, is that, I know in New York City they have even stricter laws than the rest of the state. And I believe they have a permit just to purchase the handgun first, right? Is that $300 fee for that part, or is
so
that
the permit is for the application fee in general, whether you're applying just to have a handgun in your home or in public, and really public with an asterisk, because they've, been clarifying post Bruen decision that pretty much any space where you would be in public and feel unsafe is on the list of places that you're not going to be legally able to carry.
We'll definitely, I definitely want to get your reaction to some of the post-Bruen reforms that New York is trying to institute right now. But, or I guess the law already passed. But first, I just want to go through this process, right? So you had this dangerous situation. First of all, when you got the restraining order, did the police give you any sort of indication that might be something that would qualify you to get a concealed carry permit in the city?
So New York City is very bureaucratic in many ways. And the way that's relevant here is that restraining orders, if it is a former partner, are actually not handled by the police department. They're handled by it's called, I believe, the Family Justice Center is one of the organizations. So it's a totally separate system. It's through family court. It's not through the NYPD at all. So anecdotally, I have seen some cases of people using a restraining order as a list that would, or as a reason rather, that would make them potentially eligible for these licenses. But again, it's not really clearly stated anywhere in the application or on the NYPD website, what actually qualifies you.
Right. Yeah, I guess because that's the whole idea, is that it's completely subjective and up to the issuing official, really. Right. So I mean, I know a lot of defenses of these laws are that, well, you have to show you have a good reason. And so, something like a restraining order might be that good reason. But really it is, and you're obviously started the process at the very least. It really is completely subjective. They don't give you an indication that restraining order is actually going to be able to qualify you for the permit, right?
Right. I think there's a big difference between a burdensome process and a totally opaque process. And while it would be difficult, like there's a ton of steps also to get a restraining order. And I think it's good that people can't just willy-nilly, infringe on other people's rights and ability to communicate with others. But at the same time, there is a clearly delineated process in a way that just isn't the case here.